Hello, beautiful people. I'm Chris Maddox, founder of the Wild Woman Project and Wild Woman Fest. And I'm speaking to you today because we always meet like this for almost 10 years at new moon time. So each and every time the moon is new, as it is on September 6, 2021, there is an encouragement or a hint in the natural world that something new is happening, right? So the moon cycle is always, it's always doing every 29 and a half days. It cycles from new, where we cannot see the moon in the sky. Then we watch it gradually come into fullness, and then it wanes, and then it's new again. And every time it comes back to that dark phase, which it is now, there is a kind of pause that can be had. And just an acknowledgement of the passing of time. You know, being alive is, in my mind, about having an experience. And that experience is sometimes going to be, it's going to feel really joyful and ecstatic. And sometimes it's going to challenge us and it's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to feel painful, but that's all part of it. If we can have the experience of life with the intention to grow and to learn and to explore and to discover new things, then we kind of stand in a field of possibility. So this new moon is a special new moon here at the Wild Woman Project, because we are stepping from one year-long theme into the next. So we've just finished the To Wield Love series. We're bowing out of that. And we're looking forward to this new series, which is called Path of the Poets. So I want to read to you from the great patron saint of wild women, Mary Oliver, writing about poetry here. So she writes, "Poetry is one of the ancient arts, and it begins, as did all the fine arts, within the original wilderness of the earth." Poetry is one of the ancient arts, and it begins, as did all the fine arts, within the original wilderness of the earth. So this year at the Wild Woman Project, each and every new moon, we are going to enjoy a poem together. We are going to roll a poem around in our consciousness. And poetry is ancient. And for most of its lifespan, it was an oral tradition. It wasn't written down, it was passed on, it was spoken at the fire. And we are going to allow these poems each and every month and the poets who write them to inspire thinking that may, like Mary Oliver says here, be originated within the wilderness of the earth. Because when we look at the world through the eyes of a poet, there are so many amazing poets, and we're going to get to explore many poets and poems over the year ahead, all wild woman poets. In their unique way, they offer us, if we can look through their eyes by reading, listening, running their poetry and their thoughts, their language, their ideas, and the feelings that they evoke. When we run that through our system, it's a form of, you can think of it like spiritual practice or soul food. It's a chance to see the world through someone else's perspective. And poets are a curious bunch. They're not usually looking at the surface of any matter. They are in touch simultaneously with the world that they're seeing and they're writing about, and the way it feels to take that in. And a great poet can like weave the feeling and the seeing together. So looking through the eyes of the poet asks us to listen to life and to listen with all of our senses, to listen with all of our senses. It's a loud world. It's a loud world. We've become very noisy and chattery, and everyone's got a lot of opinions and thinks they're right about everything and has a lot to say. And we are missing, I think the soul longs for the kind of listening that allows us to take in nuance and subtlety, so that we look at a tree and it doesn't just look like some piece of set in a movie. When we look at a tree like a poet looks at a tree, we see this living being. We notice the details of the colors on the tree and how the wind plays with it. We look down to its roots and we see where the roots meet the mud. And when we pay attention with that level of precision, we are alive. So, today, for this new moon, September 6th, we're going to start with our very first poem, our very first centering poem. And it's written by our featured poet of this moon cycle, which is the great Mary Oliver. The poem is called I Happen to Be Standing, and you can find it in one of her collections. So it is in 1,000 Mornings, which is a small, beautiful collection. And then this has several volumes. It's called Devotions. So if you were to order this from your local library or your local bookstore, you would not be sorry that you did. So we're going to read this poem together, and I'm going to break it into 4 chunks. So I'll read to you a passage, and then we'll take a pause and we'll ponder it a bit. We'll ponder it a bit. And then I'll read some more and we'll ponder, and so on and so forth. And yeah, let's get started. So she writes, I don't know where prayers go or what they do. Do cats pray while they sleep, half asleep in the sun? Does the opossum pray when it crosses the street? The sunflowers? The old black oak growing older every year? So let's pause and ponder this for a moment. I don't know where prayers go or what they do. I had the thought reading this poem that you could try to just contemplate that question. Where do prayers go? Where do prayers go? Where do they go? So she's pondering just like the nature of prayers, and I think of, the prayers that I have spoken, formal prayers, written prayers, and more often just riffing. Where do they go? Where are we praying? How does it work? Do other creatures pray? And that's like her question, and she just starts with all these questions. And I think that that's really, really revealing of the poet's perspective, questioning. What's a prayer? Do they pray? Does that pray? Do the cats pray? Do the sunflowers pray? How does it work? That curiosity is alive here in this poem, and so often in poetry. Next passage. I know I can walk through the world, along the shore or under the trees, with my mind filled with things of little importance, in full self attendance, a condition I can't really call being alive. So here she is articulating what so many of us experience walking through the world completely in our heads. What are we thinking about? Are we taking in the world around us? No. We are in our head, in, as she says, in full self attendance, a condition I can't really call being alive. This is like pointing to one of the most common spiritual teachings, this thing of the chattering of the mind. Or you can think of it in so many different ways. The obsessing about ego concerns, who we're arguing with in our head, or what we're sorting out for ourselves. Just walking. She's saying, I'm walking. I can be walking on the beach. I can be walking in the forest and missing it in my head, in total full self-attendance, a condition I can't really call being alive. So yeah, okay. Let me go back in next piece. Is a prayer a gift or a petition? Or does it matter? The sunflowers blaze, maybe that's their way. Maybe the cats are sound asleep. Maybe not. While I was thinking this, I happened to be standing just outside my door with my notebook open, which is the way I begin every morning. Then a wren in the privet began to sing. He was positively drenched in enthusiasm. I don't know why. And yet, why not? So let's ponder this a little bit. Ponder. So here she has like more questions about the nature of praying. Is it a gift? Is it a petition? Does it matter? Like maybe the sunflowers are just blazing and that's their prayer. Maybe cats aren't praying. Maybe they are. I don't know, So she's describing this experience of being ponder, questioning. And she just happens to be standing, which by the way is the title of the poem, just happened to be standing outside of her front door with her notebook open, which is the way she begins every morning. And as she's in her head and she's pondering, she hears the sound of a wren. And you can feel like she's taken aback by this wren, who she says is positively drenched in enthusiasm. All as she's contemplating the nature of prayers. Final passage. I wouldn't persuade you from whatever you believe or whatever you don't. That's your business. But I thought of the wren singing. What could this be if it isn't a prayer? So I just listened. Pen in the air. So she ends on this thing that she does a lot in her poetry, which is to say, like, I wouldn't persuade you from whatever you believe or whatever you don't. That's your business. She identified in her life, at least in her later years, that I know of, as an agnostic. She never quite got into the experience of certainty. And I think her spirituality is so alive for that, because certainty is, honestly, it's delusional, in my opinion. But I shouldn't even hold that so tightly, shouldn't be so certain about that. Who knows? And that's her whole vibe, is like, who knows? And in that openness of not knowing, that's where all of her poetry comes from, is that she's taking in the world, she's trying to understand the world. So she's very clear that she's not trying to tell you how to think or what to believe, which I honor her for. And I think is a really good message for our time, specifically when there's so much of people being in other people's business and holding on to certainty in ways that are silly and sometimes destructive. So she says that. But I thought of the wrens singing. What could this be if it isn't a prayer? So it's just, as she's pondering this question, which happens a lot when we ponder questions. That's something that we have talked about many times in the Wild Woman Project. Like, it's from that, originating from that great Rilke line about walking, or living the question, holding a question. That's one of the ways we can work with our inner guidance, is if we have a question about something, like Mary Oliver's question here is, I don't know where prayers go or what they do. Are they this? Are they that? Like, what is a prayer? How does it work? What is it? That's her question. She's holding it. We can all hold any question. We hold that question in our heart and our consciousness, and then we live, right? And life communicates so much, and often hints to the answers about these questions that are in our heart come through the experiences that we have, particularly in the living world, in the natural world. So here she is, she's pondering this question, and all of a sudden, snap, she hears the song of a wren, and it just kind of answers her question. What could this be if it isn't a prayer? That right there. I wasn't sure if it was the cat sleeping, the possum crossing the street. I wasn't sure if it was that old black oak tree, but that right there, that wren singing in the privet, positively drenched in enthusiasm. And there was for her answer. And at least a piece of her answer about the nature of a prayer. And this last line is just a gem. So I just listened. Pen in the air. Like, got her out of her head. Grappling. Obviously, she goes back into her head because she writes this amazing poem. But the mind can be a great service to our deeper instincts and senses about what's going on. And so this ending on listening, pen in the air. So I really like that. From an elemental perspective too, like the pen in the air. There's so much writing, any form of communication tends to be the stuff of the air element. But I think the process of writing, particularly with the pen, is a way of bringing air to earth. Because when you write, wherever you write, here she has her notebook out, which is the way she begins every morning. She pulls from the air and makes something physical. So moving air into earth, which I think is really, really beautiful. A pen and a prayer. So I hope you enjoyed that little glimpse into Mary Oliver's perspective. And that's one of the great gifts that we have from all artists, but in this case, the poets, who allow us to see the world from another perspective. We all have such a unique way of seeing the world around us, and it's colored by the experiences that we've had. It's colored by so many things, so many things. And I think listening and looking deeply at a poem and breathing with a poem and pondering with a poem is a way of very similar to when we sit in circle and we have the opportunity when someone is sharing to see the world from another perspective. And we're better for it, you know? We're all so different and beautiful. And what I hope is happening as we move into and through this transformation, which I assume will be happening for the rest of our lives, if you're watching this, is that we can find value in really listening to one another and, really taking the time to see the world from many different vantage points, to not cling so tightly to our static perceptions, but allow there to, poetry, allow there to be breath in it and space in it, and not filled to the brim. So I will have some announcements about things that are happening with the Wild Woman Project. So every new moon, for almost 10 years, circle leaders around the world lead Wild Woman Project circles in their own way, in their own voice. You can find a circle near you. I'll put a link below this video. Find a circle near you. A lot of these circles, some of them are happening online. Some of them are happening socially distanced. Some of them are happening in person. It really just depends on where you are. So you can find one near you, and you can find also a list of circles that are happening online should you like to join in any of those. They're very rich experiences. You can expect meditation and intention setting and sharing and all sorts of fun stuff. You may even get a howl in there. So that's happening this new moon and every new moon. And this fall, we have 2 online offerings that are coming up that are really, really beautiful experiences, different. So the first one starts at the end of September. It's called Befriending Your Moon Cycle. And it's a 4-week workshop series all about connecting to your menstrual cycle and your sort of inner rhythms. This is facilitated by Nina Paris, who is a yoga and meditation teacher and also one of our experienced Wild Woman Project circle leaders. You will love her. She's amazing. I'm taking the course as a participant, and I cannot wait because the menstrual cycle and its connection to the other cycles in nature, the moon cycles and the seasons, is one of nature's greatest teachers. So I hope you'll join us for that. Link below this video. General registration for that opens on September 9th. So you can find the link below this video and get on that list. And then also we have fall circle leader training, which is starting at the end of October. This is a 7-week journey. I have been facilitating this course in one way or another since 2011. And now I have a team of great mentors, and it is one part, really opening up to wild woman spirituality, nature as teacher, connection to moon. And then one part that's skill building. How do you lead a potent meditation? How do you facilitate a ritual? How do you build your community, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all online. You can find the link below this video. And if it calls to you, I hope you will join us. And both of those have limited spacing. So early registration is recommended. So I want to leave you with one something as you walk through this moon cycle. Can you think of that wren positively drenched in enthusiasm as it sings? And can you ponder where you see that in the creatures or the life around you, and maybe even the life inside of you? Are there people that you know or creatures that you know, and they do something? When they're doing it, you think, well, what could this be if it isn't a prayer? And maybe there's something that you do that has that almost devotional frequency to it. So see it and do more of that. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.